the second leg of the post-match press conference today. We have Mumbai City head coach, Mr. Desmond Buckingham. Coach, another difficult result, but are you happy with your team's performance today?
I'm extremely happy with what I've just watched. I think we've played the best team in Asia, and up until the send-off, I thought we put on a very good show of what Indian football can do on that stage against, again, like I said, the best team in this competition. And I spoke to the coach afterwards, and he was very complimentary about the performance of the players, firstly, and then secondly, the way that the team was set up to make it very difficult for them. And it's a lot of hard work that I've just seen from our players. But of course, the send-off, it's hard enough with 11 players. It becomes a lot more difficult with 10. But even then, you know, the 10 men, even though they had a lot more ground to cover, they worked extremely hard. So, yes, disappointing result, but I think the 30,000 people that turn up here to support us can be proud of what they've just seen.
We'll take some questions. Raise your hands. Yeah, Naveen over there.
Good evening, guys. Two questions if I may. First one, the way the team started, came out on spacing, was that a conscious decision from the team side? And number two, your coach also was complimentary about how the team played and how you prepared the team for this match. So could you just throw some light on what different or how differently was the preparation for this particular match?
Yeah, we had a different plan going into this one than we did in Riyadh. You know, obviously, when you go and play teams like this, you know, I thought we were extremely good in Riyadh for, I think, 65 minutes before their first goal. But what became very evident after that was how quickly they can exploit space in wide areas. So we tweaked our tactical plan to deal with that out of possession, and I thought that was extremely well executed by the players all the way through. And it made it very difficult for what are some of the world's best players. There's 5 players on that pitch that played in the Premier League last year. There's 6 players that have played at the most recent World Cup. So again, if you can stifle and make it difficult for those players, that puts us in a good position coming back into the domestic competition especially. What was the first part of your question? Sorry.
The team came out on spacing in the first 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, we said we'd get chances. You know, we obviously knew we wouldn't get as much of the ball as we do in the ISL, and we wouldn't get as many chances. But the longer the game was to go on, we knew we'd obviously get a bit more tired and fatigued. But we also said we want to be a team that attacks as well. We don't want to defend for a full game. And I was extremely pleased the first 10 minutes where I think we had 3 very good goal-scoring moments, which certainly got the crowd up on their feet. But unfortunately we couldn't capitalise. But the most important thing was we put a very good account of ourselves on after that to stay in the game at 0-0 at half-time. And then even through the second half. So yes, a mixture of both. Good to see the attacking components that people obviously see here in India, but now it's very good to see the defensive structure and the understanding to that.
Next question.
Coach, would you talk more about the second half? Was it like a turning point, and would you agree that that's where perhaps you lost the match?
I think it's clear the send-off was a turning point in the game. I think when you play this type of team, what we said before, it's very difficult when you have 11 players to try and not only prevent but then try and execute your game plan. So when you go to 10, it makes it more difficult because they have to cover more ground and there's more space. And when players of this quality have more space, it's very dangerous. But I just spoke to Metab. It's a learning for him. I thought it was probably a little bit of a harsh yellow card. I don't think the referee had actually realised that he'd booked him already. I think he had checked. He only realised that once he'd shown him the card, because that was the only tackle Metab made after picking up the first card. And when I see the first 3 or 4 tackles in the game, I think it may be a little bit harsh. But again, it's a learning that he has to understand that on a booking, you can't go to ground the way he has. But as long as he learns from that, and that's the big thing we have here, you have to learn from those mistakes. And if he does that, great. If he doesn't, it's a problem. But again, what I'm very proud of is the way that then the players down to 10 stuck to task and made it again as difficult as they could.
Hi Coach, just a few words on your goalkeeper, but he put it in a big shift. He was sent off a couple of games ago, I said, but he responded really well, showed a lot of character and really kept it on the game with saves from close range in the first half and in the second half.
Yeah, that's the Fuba that was here last season. You know, so it's good to see him back. So he had a bit of a stop-start to the season. He was out with an eye infection in the early parts to the season. So him and Navas have pretty much played 50% of game time. So he hasn't had that consistent run of games. But yeah, we knew that if we could restrict their opportunities on goal, that we still knew they would get chances. And then it's important, if we can't prevent those chances, that we have a goalkeeper in the goals to make some of the saves he did. And I agree, I think some of those saves that he made, certainly the one from Neves in the first half, where he's got down low, very low and quick to his right, were very important to us at that time. So whether it's the outfield players that are working very hard or it's the goalkeeper behind, that's the standard of goalkeeping now that we expect him to take into the ISL. Thank you.
Next question.
So this race is from RWC. So if you compare this result with the game away, it is a much more respectful result, especially with 10 men. So what are the positives that you are taking into account, especially the busy December in the ISL?
Yeah, I think we spoke before about it being a learning opportunity and an experience. You know, when you come to this level of competition, this is the first time, when we went to Riyadh, it's the first time you play against this quality of team. And like I said, I won't go on about that, but the experiences we gained from Riyadh and the experience our players gained, they knew what to expect when we arrived here, and that helps them prepare, whether it's mentally or physically. There's no surprises as such. They know they're good players, but they know that they've already taken to the field. They've kind of got that out of their system a little bit, and they know that yes, they have a challenge in their hands, but they know their job. So the approach to tonight, again, if we'd have kept 11 men on the field for the full game, I'd have been very interested to see how that game would have finished off, because I thought, again, we were extremely good with 11, but wasn't to be. But yeah, the learnings certainly from the first game to this game, I think, are very evident to see.
Just trying to probe the answer yesterday. There's a big smile plastered on your face, and I'm assuming that's largely because of the kind of performance that we saw from your team. Just trying to compare the last Champions League campaign you had, which was a centralized venue in Iran, which was without fans, and this campaign where the team traveling in and out of countries, playing in front of packed stadiums in Iran and even here in India. How different is the experience for the players, and even from a learning point of view? Do you think this is something? This is an opportunity for the team to learn something more from what they experienced at the centralized venue last time?
The first thing I must do is speak about the attendance. We've just had over 30,000 people come from mainly Mumbai and the Mumbai surrounding regions, but I know there's people that have travelled across India to come and watch that game. And that whole stadium cheering and chanting, firstly for Mumbai, but then I think they can be proud of what, especially Indian players, have just shown. For us to get 30,000 here, you know, if we can turn some of that attendance now into our attendance at the MFA, that's very powerful, because that atmosphere was wonderful, and full credit to the crowd for making it that way. What was the second part of your question again? Sorry.
I can repeat, not a problem.
Just the first part.
Just trying to compare the two seasons.
Yeah.
Playing in the centralized venue and now traveling in and out of countries.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, when we put it into context, we're at very different points of our campaign this year. So when we went last year, we'd finished our season and we went straight into a Champions League format. This year, although the competition format has been aligned to bring us in line with Asia, there are still big differences between our league and the leagues that we are playing in. Al Hilal, for an example, they're coming towards the end of their season. We're still only 5 games into ours, so there's very different points to that. And I think what we've certainly seen in the ACL games, bear in mind our first game was an ACL game, we've now put together 9 games this season, and the fitness, the match sharpness, the quickness of the players allows them to perform and match and compete with this level now after 9 games than the first. And I think the longer our season goes on, that's the difference for me. The last time we were at the end of the season, the players were ready and they were sharp. This year, we're just about finding our feet now. And I think that was important today, because that allowed us to run through 95 minutes, especially with 10 men.
Next question.
So this, any words for Aamchi, especially after this, you do not know about, especially after Jabo has gone, has done pretty well for me in the last 2 games, especially the Hilal away game and even today was pretty good. So what are your performances in the championship?
I can speak about Boy for the Champions League, but I can also speak to the 2.5 years I've now had the pleasure of working with him. He's a wonderful young man. He come here as a good player, you know, a 20-year-old player, 20-year-old player. He had the real luxury of learning and working alongside Aamchi. And I mean, we've done a lot of work with him, and he's worked extremely hard himself. But when you get the ability to work alongside one of the best midfield players still in the Indian Super League for 2 seasons, I think that's really helped enhance his development as well, as around all the other stuff. And I think what we're seeing now is a very mature young man who, in our environment in particular, whether it's ISL or Champions League, is able to now demonstrate consistent and high-level performances. But that's down to a combination of, you know, the work he's done. It's down to the commitment of and the learning experience that have been shared with him from players and hopefully the staff. And it's him. He almost seems to be enjoying his football now. And I can't speak highly enough of him. His attitude towards what he does, how he does it here at the club, is as good as any young player, especially that I've worked with.
Any other questions? Okay. If no further questions, we'll wrap up the press conference. Thank you, Coach. Congratulations for the defeat. All the best for the upcoming matches.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.